A serial killer is hunting women in New York. He meets them online, lures them to his side, and then their bodies turn up on a beach on a side of a busy highway. The Long Island serial killer, also known as Jack the Ripper of Long Island, is hiding in plain sight for everyone to see. But missteps by a police department cause this predator to go free for decades as he continues his hunt. On this week's episode of Two Crime Newsies, we dig into the burlap and the mountain of evidence that ended up with a very unlikely suspect being charged with 7 murders. Hey everyone, I'm Jen.
Hi, I'm Tina.
Thanks for being with us for another week. Now, this is a heavy episode.
Sure is.
Kids, turn this off. Teenagers, turn this off. I would say some adults. I don't want you to go away. I want you to keep listening to us, but it's a heavy story.
It's a heavy story, but I think it was not terribly difficult to watch.
It was
as
not.
far as, there was no gore or anything like that.
Mhm.
Any kind of bloody images, stuff like that.
Exactly. This week, we're talking about a Netflix documentary that came out in April of 2025. So not too long ago from now, called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer. It's a 3-part documentary. And I will say I have been itching to do an episode about the Long Island serial killer since before we even decided to do this podcast. I have been pretty much obsessed with this case since 2010 when I was still working at the TV station and remember covering this story despite not living anywhere near New York.
It got worldwide attention. I also loved this series. It's a compelling story from start to finish. There are so many twists and turns, and I loved that it was such a well put together show.
Yeah.
I was compelled from beginning to end. I was on the edge of my seat. I wanted to know more. I loved this show. Whoever put it together did a dang good job.
They really do.
Bravo. Serial murder criming, that's what I call it. Serial murder criming is sometimes a bit dark for me. It was easy to watch. I didn't see any bloody crime scene pictures. I very much appreciate that.
Which the topic is definitely more of my thing.
Yes.
But I'm glad that I chose a show that was like, hey, Tina can watch this.
Both of us. Yes.
Yes. So this show, Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer on Netflix, reminds me of Dexter. I don't know if you ever watched Dexter, but Dexter was one of my favorite TV shows. It's about a serial killer in Miami, but he's kind of a good serial killer where he goes after people who are hurting other people. I'm not saying that this guy is good by any means.
No.
Like, he is a terrible, terrible human being. But I feel like it was kind of like Dexter because just like on the show, he's an absolutely ruthless monster. And he basically stalks people. He hunts them, which is something Dexter does.
I did write in my notes, spot on, Jen. I also love Dexter. I'm watching Dexter Original Sin right now. Are you watching that?
That's the one where he has like the son where Harrison is older.
This is like the prequel. So it is Dexter when he's young.
Oh.
You have to watch this. It's so good.
Oh.
So they got the characters, from the original Dexter, and all of them are now younger. You will be floored how well these characters match the original characters. It looks exactly like this is them when they were younger. It sounds exactly like them if they were younger. It's amazingly well done.
I will have to watch that then.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's go back to original programming.
That's a very reporter thing to say. So this show obviously takes place in Long Island, New York. Long Island is home to about 8 million people. It's known as the birthplace of the suburbs because you have New York City on one side, you have the swanky Hamptons on the other side, and in between that, you have people who are living and they want to have that little Americana small town feel. They can't get that in the city. And they're living there, commuting back and forth to Manhattan for work. So that's what we're basically talking about.
We hear from a journalist named Jacqueline Gallucci. She's throughout this series in and out and giving interviews on it. And she does say that this place is a place that she didn't think anything bad would happen. I can't imagine I always think something bad's going to happen everywhere.
Obviously, we've talked that before on shows where Tina's driving down the road and she's worried if
I'm
she's
on the lookout.
Yeah, she's worried about bodies and all kinds of stuff.
I was on a road trip this weekend doing the same thing, on the lookout, making sure
gosh.
that if some crime needs to be reported, I'm there.
You're there. You're there. Well, something did kick this off. In May of 2010, May 1st, 2010 to be exact, there was a 911 call placed in Long Island from a woman named Shannon Gilbert. She said that she was in Long Island and she needed the police. She said that there are people plotting to kill her. And in this 911 call that we hear on the show, like she's breathing heavy, like you can tell she's kind of running, it sounds like. It sounds very choppy, kind of disheveled, but you can hear the absolute terror in her voice. You can hear her screaming on the call to stop it. You can hear her saying, "What are you going to do to me?" And calls from this surrounding neighborhood of Oak Beach, Long Island, start coming in. Oak Beach is this gated community, which when I hear gated community, I think of money. Cha-ching. And you have all these calls coming in to police about a young woman running around the neighborhood, and someone in a car is chasing after her. Well, we find out that Shannon Gilbert was an escort and she was working on Craigslist. She was in New York City the night of May 1st, 2010. She got a call and she had hired a friend named Michael Pack to kind of be her driver for the night and to keep her safe. Around midnight, Shannon gets this call from a client she's been around before named Joseph Brewer, who Joseph Brewer lives in this gated community called Oak Beach on Long Island. It's a bit of a trek there to get there. It's a 90-minute drive. So Shannon got to Joseph Brewer's house around 2 a.m. and was inside for a couple of hours, the show says. And then shortly before 5 a.m., here is Joseph Brewer tapping or knocking on Michael Pack's car window door. And he's telling him, "Hey, Shannon won't leave my house. Like she won't go anywhere." We on this show hear about an interview that Michael Pack, Shannon's driver, gave in 2011. And it was recorded by a journalist named Robert Kolker.
I think so.
I think that's how you say his name. Pack said that Shannon looked super scared and paranoid and started running away. Now, around this Oak Beach neighborhood is all this like marshland. And the marshland is going to be kind of crucial to this case eventually. But so Shannon's running around. We hear from a neighbor who says Shannon came like knocking on his door and he tried to like comfort her, let her in, and she bolted out of his house and hid behind a boat. Very, very chaotic.
Yeah, he had actually called police, let her in, had her take a seat, and was on the phone with police when she got out and bolted out his door.
And she had said too to him that somebody was going to kill her. Michael Pack, her driver, says that at one point he caught up with Shannon and she bolted away again and he couldn't find her. So what does he do? He drives home. What the actual beep? We have a clean rating, so I want to keep it at that. What the actual heck? He left her. He left her there. Clearly, she's in some state of distress, and he left her. It was his job to protect her. I wrote in my notes a very unkind word. I'm just going to say the first letter starts with an A.
Like and a donkey.
Yes. It's a donkey move. Yes. Seriously, how terrible is this?
I wrote, it's so confusing. I said this whole thing is weird. It doesn't make any sense. Michael claims he did make an effort to look for her after she bolted from him, but he couldn't find her. And I'm really not sure what I expect him to do at this point other than call police. His friend is acting erratically. If this is not normal behavior and she's lost like somewhere out in the marsh or in the woods, wherever the heck this is, absolutely he should have definitely called somebody, police.
Can
I'd
I say something?
Yes.
So I'm going to disagree with you on this one, Tina. I love you, but listen to this nonsense. So he is there to protect her. He brought her there. She hired him to be her driver, and he left her.
Oh, I absolutely think that he's wrong for leaving her. He should have stayed and called the police. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. But so I'm sorry.
I do not believe he should have gone home and called police. I believe he should have stayed there and called the police.
Okay. Yes. I still love you. But we've all had that friend who acts erratic after a night of whatever. We've all had that friend.
Sure.
And we don't just leave them.
We don't. And I don't understand why she didn't allow him to drive her home. This is the friend that she trusts to be her protector, her driver. Why did she not just get in the car with him and have him get her out of there?
I also wonder about Joseph Brewer at that point in time. What did he do? Did he just go back into his house? Like, she's out of my home. All right, I'm turning off the light. I'm going to bed.
Well, he's not her friend, right?
This
guy is her friend. So Joseph has no loyalty to her. I feel like Michael should have some loyalty to her.
Agreed.
And also you have these two people who have, I'm assuming, a similar story, right? Joseph and Michael, that they talked to them both, and they're both saying this, like, this guy came up to the window, or tapped on my window, said she was acting strange and to come get her. I mean, unless they were both doing something incredibly terrible to her, I can't imagine what went on here. Like, it's
chaos.
It's so weird.
Yeah. The big question, like you wrote in your notes, is what freaked her out?
What freaked her out?
Yeah. We watched the show, and that's what we want to know.
So someone has a line in this show that says that we hear Michael Pack doesn't have an explanation for what freaked her out. And Joseph Brewer is, in quotes I wrote, reluctant to talk about it. And if you're reluctant, I have no words right now.
I think it's one of those things, like, if you hire somebody to provide some kind of sexual favor for you, I think you probably, in a sense, have some shame.
So you're reluctant to talk about what happened.
That's what I'm assuming. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm thinking.
Okay, I can see that, because part of me wants to say, sir, if the police are asking you a question, like, the police cannot be like, oh, you're reluctant to talk about this. Okay. We won't talk about it if it makes you feel bad.
Realistically, this police department could.
You're absolutely right.
We're going to get into that. But this police department in this show definitely could.
Sure.
So we move on to hear from Inspector Stuart Cameron with the Suffolk County Police Department. So Oak Beach, this area of Long Island is known as Suffolk County. He says he got a call about Shannon being missing, went to Oak Beach, spoke to Brewer and other Oak Beach residents, and no one could find Shannon. And he, along with other investigators, assumed that Michael Pack had at some point found Shannon, taken her home, and that was the end of the story. Meanwhile, Shannon's mom, her name is Mary, reported Shannon missing, and the show says police officers laughed at her, saying that Shannon's a prostitute and that she will turn up eventually, which is something we know has happened to dozens and dozens and dozens of women who work escort, prostitute, whatever you call it. And it's terrible.
It's absolutely terrible. I feel if your job is to serve and protect the community in whatever capacity that is, your job is to serve and protect all people in that community. No person is more or less valued than the other. And that also includes showing care and compassion when people are coming to you for help. If that is your duty to help others, you need to have those, what do you even call them? Like qualities. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Shannon's mom tried super, super hard to get the word out about Shannon being missing. Shannon's mom was interviewed, not specifically on this show, but on other shows post disappearance. And they showed videos of this on Gone Girls, Long Island Serial Killer. And Shannon's mom had said that police gave her one excuse after the other. They didn't have enough people. They were on a budget. They couldn't pay the overtime.
Yeah, we did see her giving an interview to news reporters. I don't know if she called them, but if she did, smart woman.
Yeah.
Because if you have an impactful story that needs to be told, you call the newsroom and you tell your story, because every newsroom has a tip line. Journalists also have an obligation to serve their community, and I can't speak for all of them, but I do think that more often than not, they do choose a career because they want to help others.
I agree. I think that's why we did it.
I feel the same. Giving a voice to those that are not being heard and should be heard is a way to do that. However, I do understand one of the victim's relatives when they say, for the news media, this is just a story, but for these other people, it's their life.
Yeah.
I can see how they feel that maybe these reporters don't have the compassion that they're seeking, because for them, it's just a story. But I do feel like there's a lot of journalists who carry this. Like they want also to solve a problem, to find answers. And that's what drives them to do what they do.
I still think about some of the cases that I covered and that were unsolved, and you still think of it. And there's times too where I go online and I will look up to see if there's something new. The one thing I definitely understand and agree with this victim's relative who made that statement is that sometimes we cover something in the media for 2 or 3 days and then we get another hot story and our attention turns to that. And I'll be completely honest, I know I have been guilty about this. Like, I then don't really go back and focus on that because the news business is such a today business. If it doesn't happen today, it doesn't get covered. I mean, I feel there's some cases where I think I would have liked to go back and recover that, but there was nothing new. And so in like an assignments meeting, you'd pitch it and they were like, if there's nothing new to it, we're not going to put it on air.
Yeah. On a related note, I do wish social media was a thing back then when I had first started reporting, because there's so many ways to reach people now. There's so many ways to pick up stories. You have tweets. I wrote a note. Is it still called tweets? Now that it's not Twitter, it's X. What do you call them? X's?
I don't know. I don't have Twitter, so that whole tweeting X whatever thing, I don't know.
I obviously don't have X. that does sound weird to say. But you also have Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. There are so many places to dig up good stories and to also, if you have a story, to continuously get it out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I completely agree with you.
Okay, back to the case.
Shannon disappeared in May of 2010. 8 months later. Let me repeat that. 8 whole months in December of 2010. Police finally agreed to start looking for Shannon because she hadn't showed up anywhere. Okay. 8 months.
Yep. I followed you. I said 8 months. I had to repeat it because it's ludicrous. And I'm not talking about the rapper. I was saying that every time I wrote the word ludicrous throughout this whole thing, and I just,
Yeah, like, Luda. 8 months. The police department sent out a press release on December 11th, 2010, stating to area news stations that human remains had been found along Ocean Beach Parkway on Gilgo Beach, which is... it's on the Long Island area.
So the police call Shannon Gilbert's mom, assuming that it is Shannon's body that was found.
Terrible.
Then they call her back and say, sorry, wrong body.
How bad is that?
Sorry, wrong body.
I want to punch them for that.
I can't imagine the emotional turmoil here.
Then a few days later, on December 13th, they find, and by they, I mean investigators, police, find 3 more skeletons within a 1/10 of a mile away from each other on Gilgo Beach. And all of these skeletons are bound and wrapped in burlap.
Jacqueline Gallucci, we hear from her again. She's the journalist from the Long Island Press, says, this is not just a rage killing. She says this is someone out there who is hunting women.
Yeah, he's stalking them and he's hunting them. And none of these women, none of these 4 bodies were Shannon Gilbert. They knew this because Shannon Gilbert had a metal plate in her jaw. She had been the victim of domestic violence. None of these bodies had that titanium plate that she apparently had in her jaw. However, 5 hairs thought to be the suspect were found at the scene. And this will play into how this scumbag is eventually caught. Or I guess at this point, suspected scumbag.
Yeah.
We hear in an interview that journalist Robert Kolker did in 2011 with someone who sounded like an investigator. They didn't identify this person. There was like no subtitle, no nothing on it. It was just video over audio, which in TV we call a VO. And it looks like someone pulled up on a shoulder, he says, took the remains and maybe walked in a little into this like brushy area on Gilgo Beach and tossed or laid it down. And by it, he means the body. There wasn't much forensic evidence left at the scene, and this was in large part due to the elements. It's a beach environment.
Yes, they mentioned the salt water at Gilgo Beach, the wind, the sunlight, all things, according to the Suffolk County District Attorney, says are very inhospitable to forensic evidence.
Police, investigators, and so forth start going through missing persons databases. And the bodies were not connected to any local missing persons cases. So investigators thought that maybe these women were in Oak Beach working as prostitutes. I feel like that jump is just a like, what? Why are you making this jump?
Right.
Okay, so basically 3 or more bodies is classified as a serial killer. They had 4 bodies, which kind of started the term LISK, L-I-S-K, Long Island serial killer, Jack the Ripper of Long Island, whatever you want to call this, A-H, donkey. In my opinion.
We're going to go with donkey.
Yeah. On the show, we hear from the sister of Maureen Brainard Burns. And now Marie Brainard Burns is one of the victims who was found on Gilgo Beach. Now we hear from her sister. She says that her sister went missing on July 9th, 2007. Now remember, her remains, her body was not found until December of 2010. Okay, that's more than 3 years that this family had no idea what happened to Maureen. Maureen's sister says that Maureen had told her family that she was working as a model in New York City, but she was a prostitute who would advertise on Craigslist. And no one would take the family serious when they reported Maureen missing.
We hear from a friend of Maureen's named Sarah Carnes. She says 2 weeks after Maureen went missing, she got a call from a blocked number saying that the person who called her, a man, saw her ad on Craigslist and asked if she was from Connecticut. And she said, yeah. Why? And the caller told her he met with another girl from Connecticut and asked if she knows Maureen. And Sarah said he was very articulate and calm, except when he described Maureen. He said she was short, she had blue eyes, and she has a tattoo on her right arm that says Nicole or something in red. And Sarah said, yes, that's my friend and she's missing. And the man responded with, she's not missing. I just saw her at a whorehouse in Queens.
I know, that makes me sick. And we've covered this on other episodes too, where these guys call victims' families and call victims themselves because they're just reliving the thrill of
They're
this.
torturing them.
Yeah. Sick. We go to January 24th of 2011, 6 weeks after the bodies were found on Gilgo Beach. That's when Maureen's body was identified. Not only was Maureen identified, the other victims were as well. There was a 24-year-old named Melissa Barthelemy, and she was last seen in 2009. There was 22-year-old Megan Waterman, who was last seen in 2010. And then there was 27-year-old Amber Costello, who was last seen in 2010. And then we had, as we said, Maureen Brainard, who was 25 years old, and she was last seen in 2007.
Maureen Brainard Barnes.
So the Suffolk County DA, Thomas Spoda, at the time, and I'm giving Tina a look, and you'll find out why, held a press conference at this point saying that these women were engaged in high-risk business, and these homicides are directly related to this business. In my notes, I wrote, damn, it sounds like victim blaming to me. Shame on him. Nobody deserves this. It doesn't matter what you do for a living.
And I have a question. What if it was the other way around? What if the women were killing the men that they met up with? Would it still be considered that the victims in that case were engaging in a high-risk business?
Nope.
I also wanted to Google high-risk jobs. Here's a list of some high-risk jobs. There's so many, so I'm not going to read them all. But here's some. Logging workers, waste collector, delivery driver, miner, agricultural workers, construction helpers, roofers, firefighters, farmers, police officers, all high-risk jobs. So do all of them not deserve to be investigated because they are just high-risk workers?
That makes me so mad.
Absolutely.
I hate that. What is a locker, by the way?
Is that Paul Bunyan?
Oh, it's a guy who chops wood. It's like that Ice Road Truckers.
Okay. Oh,
remember that
those
show?
are truckers, which I believe is also listed as a high-risk job. Okay, hold on. We mentioned Paul Bunyan in an earlier episode.
He's not a real person.
He's a lumberjack.
They cut down trees.
He has come to represent Minnesota's Northwoods, apparently.
Is this according to Google AI?
Uh-huh. He's a folk hero in American and Canadian folklore. He's known for his superhuman strength and exploits in the logging industry. So maybe he's a logger.
He's a logger. He's a logger.
Okay.
All
anyway,
right.
Mystery solved on that one.
Yeah. So after the identification of the 4 bodies, police went back to Shannon's driver and the guy she was with that night, Joseph Brewer, to re-interview them, and both had done polygraphs, okay? And both were ruled out of having anything to do with their disappearance. Now, I just want to say polygraphs are subjective.
Unless you're Jen.
What do you mean?
Your problem, you said, was if you took a polygraph, you would be sweating a lot.
I would.
You would definitely have some reactions to being hooked up to this polygraph machine. So would that make your polygraph subjective?
Say I took a polygraph, hadn't done anything, but I'm doing all these like sweating and I'm, like right now, literally just thinking about taking a polygraph test, like I'm sweating and I have nothing to be, I have even read, I don't know where I read it, but I read it somewhere that if you fart during a polygraph, no, it's true that if you fart or you clench your bottom part, you know what I'm saying? Like you clench your backside, it impacts the spiking of the needle. So
I need to know where you read this.
I find these factoids, Tina.
I find these factoids. That is
do.
Definitely a Jen-ism.
I feel like if somebody was giving me a polygraph and I fart or whatever, it's probably going to move the needle and they're going to be like, oh, she's lying about something.
So these guys didn't have any flatulence problems when they were taking their exam, is what you're saying.
Apparently not. Okay. I think polygraphs are subjective because it's a person who is analyzing these results.
Sure, it's more like a psychological thing, right? Like, hey, are you willing to take this polygraph or not?
We talked about that in the Rebecca Zahow episode.
Because if you're willing to take it, it makes you look less guilty. If you're not willing to take it, it makes you look real guilty.
All right, go on, Tina.
Okay, just to reiterate, Shannon at this point has not been found, and no one is sure if her disappearance is related to the other women who have been found, which they are calling at this point in the show the Gilgo 4. And we see a timeline of the 4 victims' disappearances. Again, I love the way they did this show. It was
so good.
So easy to follow the story. There wasn't a lot of back and forth. And I love that they provided this timeline for us. So they show Maureen disappears July 2007. 2 years later, Melissa disappears in July 2009. Megan disappears in June 2010. And 3 months later, Amber in September of 2010.
The thing what gets me about this, and I don't know if I'm just reading into this is like summer months, which I correlate summer months. Shannon went missing in May, Maureen in July, Melissa in July, Megan in June. I look at that and I'm like, summer vacation.
Oh my gosh.
Travel.
I had not put that together. Yeah. You're right.
That's what I think, it's not happening in December or March at this point.
Right. It is summer vacation when people
Are traveling.
leave.
When people leave.
Which back.
Yeah, with family members traveling. So police start looking at the phone records for these victims. And all of the victims had been or were around Long Island on the last day they were known to be alive. Dave Schaller.
I don't know how you say his name, but he was a great guy.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his interviews.
He was really great. So Dave says that he was a friend of Amber Costello, the victim who went missing in September of 2010. And he says that on September 2nd of 2010, Amber put an ad on Craigslist, and a guy called her and asked her to meet with him. And apparently she left her cell phone and everything that she owned, her pocketbook, everything, at home, which is very strange. I don't go anywhere without my cell phone.
No. She left without her purse, no ID, no cell phone. No one knows why.
And she told her friends, including Dave, that if she stays with this guy, with this client for 24 hours, he was going to pay her $2,500. Dave said that a few weeks before Amber went missing, there was a guy who had come to the house who scared Amber. And apparently he was grabby with her. Dave and another friend of Amber's confronted him. And Dave describes him as a giant bear who was the size of the door. He says that this guy was a predator who was focused on Amber and told her, "I'll see you," and walked out of the house. So Dave told the police after Amber went missing that about this guy, because there was something sketchy about him. It's like, as Tina likes to say, red flags.
Red flags. What happened was Dave wasn't home at the time, but this guy had come to the house to meet up with Amber, freaked her out so bad that she went and hid in the restroom and either called or texted Dave to come home. And so he does, and he's confronted with this big guy, and he pretty much pushes him out the door, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And that's when the scary guy is just focused on Amber and says, "I'll see you."
I'll see you. Ugh. And so Dave said that after Amber went missing, he told the police about this, but they didn't do anything about it. And turns out the show says that police were able to track the burner phone that this guy used to call Amber from Central Long Island to a very small area called Massapequa Park. And I think this is fascinating. The whole cell phone data thing, I think, is just so cool. And so many crimes have been solved due to cell phone coverage. It's incredible.
I wrote science. I love it.
Is that science though?
Yes, of course it is.
No.
Yeah, tracking data, like that's sciences. For sure. You don't think so?
I think it's like techie.
Oh, sure. Techie is a science.
No.
There is science behind tech. Anyway, by the way, Jen, I wrote, "Thank you for stalking me this weekend." Jen added me to Find My Friends and saw that I was in a strange location for a really long time this weekend.
And wasn't moving.
And I wasn't moving. I was visiting my sister. Jen doesn't know where she lives. She knows now.
I do know.
But I do appreciate that you were making sure I was safe. Pro tip, I'm going to sound like a stalker for saying this. I take screenshots of Find My Friends, and if I see my friends in a strange location for a really long time, I'm not joking. In case I need to give them to police. For instance, I saw my mom was in an unusual area of town one time, and she wasn't responding to my calls or text messages, which is super weird. Super. I mean, if I call my mom and she doesn't call me back within 2 minutes, something's wrong. So I was trying to find out if she was okay. So just in case, I took a screenshot. What if her phone died? What if I needed to give someone her lost phone's location? And we don't live in the same town. So it's not like I could just run over to that location and make sure she's okay. Like, I got to have it just in case.
That does make you sound like a crazy stalker.
Oh my gosh.
But I still love you.
Anyway, mom was okay.
And you were too.
And I was too. I think there was some delay in her phone, so it wasn't actually like recording her live location. She was just passing by location, but it kind of took a minute for the phone to catch up. By a minute, I mean a really long time, like maybe an hour or two. Anyway, moving on. That's enough about me being a weirdo.
Well, okay. So we hear about the cell phone data, and it showed that the burner phone that had called Amber was used in central Long Island in a small area called Massapequa Park, which we talked about before. Tina's stalking habit, apparently.
You stalked me first.
Well, so apparently the police investigators had a theory. And that theory is that someone who is killing these women is local. They live here on Long Island. Now, a week after 24-year-old Melissa Bartholomew went missing in 2009, her teenage sister says she received a phone call from her sister Melissa's phone. Ding, 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 ding. It's the same thing. He's calling people to taunt them.
But he's calling from the phone.
He's calling from the missing woman's phone.
Oh, can you imagine if your sister's missing, you get a phone call from her phone?
Turns out it was not her sister calling. It was a man who was taunting her, psychologically torturing Melissa's little sister. She kept asking about her sister, and he wouldn't tell her. She says that this guy who was calling was super calm, and it sounded like he was enjoying this. And he told her that at that moment, while he was talking to her, he was watching her sister's body decompose. This guy called this teenage girl 7 or 8 times, and police eventually started tapping into these calls to try to trace the calls. But think about that. Psychologically, this teenage girl is being used as bait. Because of all this, she was terrified.
She couldn't focus on school. She had to quit. And she was terrified of strangers, thinking that they could be this man. The trauma of this girl, what she's been through, I don't know how you go back to leading a normal life.
You don't, I don't think you can. But she seems, so they interview her on the show, and she seems like a super, super strong person.
Absolutely. Though she mentions that she was terrified, thinking that strangers could be this person, she wasn't afraid of him. She wanted him to get caught, and she was going to do whatever is possible on her end to make it happen.
Yeah. So police ended up tracking that call to Midtown Manhattan. And that's how they figured out that this guy lives in Long Island and then commutes at some point during the day to Manhattan, probably for work. And at that point, the calls stopped. So we fast forward a couple more months to spring of 2011, when the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit, which is, I think of the show Criminal Minds, the BAU, and they put out profiles. Like, it's so cool.
It's my favorite part of these whole shows are the profiles.
Yeah.
Like how they figure out who this person is.
The BAU gave a profile of the Long Island serial killer, and they said he's a white guy, probably in his 40s. He's socially competent, meaning he's like a normal everyday person.
He blends
in with everybody. He's not suspicious, and he's very, very devious. He's probably a family guy, married, kids, whatever. And if he's living with a family, though, his family is away when this happens, when he starts going on these killing episodes, because it's obvious that these girls were not killed on the beach, but they have no leads, no suspects, and no persons of interest.
I wrote this as fascinating. What makes them think that this guy could be a family man? Is it because he probably has a 9 to 5 and he's commuting in and out of Manhattan? Is it because Long Island is a suburb of mostly families? I'm so intrigued at how they profiled him, how they came to all of these conclusions. And now I also wonder, where's Paul Holes when you need him?
We love Paul Holes.
Oh, gosh, man, he would have been great in this episode or in this series.
Yep.
I want to know what he thinks about this guy.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Paul Holes, shout out.
Yep. And also, we hear more theories, and I love theories.
You give them to me, Tina.
Okay, the bodies were all wrapped in burlap. So they wonder if this is someone who works at a nursery or a garden center.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. I mean, I don't have burlap hanging around. Who does? I know. Oh my gosh. Of course you would. I know you're going to say it.
I have like burlap twine, and then I also have a couple of burlap sacks that I bought one year during the Olympics because I wanted to have like at-home Olympics for my kids.
Oh, like the sack races?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but realistically, I have burlap sacks.
Yeah. Another theory is that he was a hunter or fisherman.
How so?
Because he maybe could have blended in at Gilgo Beach if he was on the water. If he was on a boat on the water being a fisherman.
He would just come in to drop the bodies?
Correct.
Okay. So at this point, Shannon Gilbert is still missing. Finally, the police order a new search on March 29th of 2011. That's 11 months after she disappeared. At this point, more remains are found on Ocean Parkway on Gilgo Beach. We have 10 bodies, but Shannon Gilbert is not one of those 10 bodies. And at this point, there is worldwide news coverage.
I said, holy moly, this is crazy. We hear this is the biggest serial killer case in Long Island in a generation. Where is Shannon Gilbert? She is still missing. She's none of these people.
A generation is like, what?
Are you doing math in your head?
Did I just have a duh
Yep.
look? How long is a generation? Like one person's lifetime? Okay,
this is why I love having a computer right next to me when we're doing this.
You can't give me that look when you are Googling, my friend.
It's not because I don't want to give you an answer. I hate being wrong. What's ironic is that I'm mostly always wrong. But
anyway.
I'm
usually right.
Oh gosh. Okay. Here we go. A generation is considered to be around 20 to 30 years, representing the time it takes for one generation to grow up and have children of their own. This is according to the Google AI. Also Wikipedia.
I don't know how reliable that is.
Those two sources?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's better than me. Better than me coming up with my own definition.
So, May 9th of 2011, remains of these other victims are identified. The bodies that were found on Gilgo Beach include Jessica Taylor, whose torso was found 50 miles away from Gilgo Beach in 2003. She was also an escort. We have Jane Doe number 6. I don't know why they identify her as number 6, but I'm assuming it's the series of
people who've been found
on Gilgo.
Yeah.
We have a toddler child and an Asian male, according to the show, who is dressed in drag attire. Body number 9 we hear about was in a bag with arms and legs. Ugh, this is just so disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
And down the beach a ways, a skull was found. All together, as we've stated, there were 10 bodies located and still no Shannon. Up until now, that marsh area that we had talked about, which is around Joseph Brewer's house and that neighborhood, was never in fact searched. So the last place that Shannon Gilbert was seen near this marsh had never been searched. Keep that in mind. I want to know why that area was not searched.
Authorities say it was a wet, soggy ground area with brackish and cold water. They say it was a hazardous environment to dedicate that many resources to it. When it was a mystery, what happened to her? But I'm raising my eyebrows when they're talking about this and saying maybe it wouldn't be such a mystery if you followed the clues, which would lead you to the marsh. Hello.
It's the last place she was seen running to.
It was the last place she was seen. How do you not search the last place someone was seen?
Yes, we will talk about the police side of this later. So we fast forward to December 6th of 2011, 19 months after Shannon went missing. They finally search the marsh, okay? And I wrote in my notes, these investigators suck.
Like, why now? You now have the resources, but you didn't have the resources then? What happened? What changed? Why?
I don't know.
Ugh.
And if you think about it, if they were like, oh, it's too muddy or whatever, you don't have to wait a full calendar year plus some to search this area.
Now, are they searching only because they know they have a serial killer on their hands?
So on December 6th of 2011, Shannon's jeans, her wallet, her ID, and her cell phone and her shoes are found in this marshy area. I wrote in my notes, these
Donkeys.
could have found all of this 19 months sooner if they didn't have their noses
Up their donkey parts.
I wrote, this pisses me off, because it does. And I think it rightfully so pissed off
Everybody.
Clearly, Shannon's family was upset. The family had hired an attorney, all this kind of stuff. But it also, we later on in the show, I just want to throw this out there as well. Later on in the show, we do learn of some other investigators who I feel probably knew it was the right place to search, but were being told they were not allowed to search that
You're
area.
right.
So I don't just want to say like all of these investigators
Are bad.
They're not.
Right.
On December 13th of 2011, Shannon's body is found exactly 1 year since the discovery of the original Gilgo Beach victims were found. So we have Shannon's body is body number 11, found naked, half a mile from where she was last seen in the Oak Beach neighborhood, but very far from her belongings, from her jeans, from her wallet, from her ID, her cell phone, all of that, okay? And she's found naked, no jeans on. And if it's a marshy area, those jeans are going to get wet. And as any woman knows, it's super hard to take off your jeans when they're wet. Police were saying that Shannon's death was accidental, that she ran into this marsh, got stuck in some kind of mucky area. They say the words on the show, and it makes me cringe. They say she expired without any kind of investigation. In my notes, I wrote the corruption and the stupidity is insane.
Right. If you know that you've got a serial killer running around, you got to do more.
Yeah.
You got to figure out exactly what happened. You can't just assume.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that she took off her wet jeans apparently is very, very bizarre to a lot of people out there. A lot of the family members, just the public in general, according to the show, was like, this doesn't seem right.
Right. So one of the authorities mentions, I can't remember who said this, mentions paradoxical undressing. Never heard of it before. They say it's when you get hypothermic, and when it happens, about 20 to 50% of people feel extremely hot when they reach the late stages of hypothermia. So they take their clothes off. And he says this has even happened in the Arctic, and they found people doing this. I don't know.
That's weird.
I don't know.
Strange.
Wet jeans.
Yeah, those are a pain to get off.
And imagine if you're doing it in a marshy area.
At night. The Suffolk County Medical Examiner determined that Shannon's cause of death was undetermined.
Again, I find this interesting that these authorities seem to make a lot of assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wrote, they don't seem to make the most reasonable assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
How are all of these women escorts found all in the same area, yet only one of them is not a homicide?
Yep, because Shannon worked as an escort, was in Oak Beach, which is near Gilgo Beach, working on a night when she's called 911, said that someone is out to kill her. They're going to hurt her. She's running for her life. Her body is found 19 months later, and apparently it's undetermined.
They could probably determine. They just determined what they wanted to determine.
Shannon's family is not taking this answer from the county medical examiner. And so Shannon's family brought in a world-renowned forensic pathologist named Michael Botten. He reported her death, Shannon's death, was consistent with homicide and inconsistent with natural causes. The autopsy report states that she was probably strangled due to damage to the hyoid and windpipe, which is something that we talked about before in the Rebecca Zahow case. So when you strangle somebody or somebody is strangled, the hyoid, which is a very small bone in the neck, has a tendency to break fairly easily. Shannon's hyoid was broken. But at this point, we have now 11 bodies with Shannon, but Shannon is not being ruled a homicide. So they're kind of putting that case to the side. Truthfully, it's what the show led it to sound like.
Right.
I feel like that's just a lot to unwrap. Could one killer be truly responsible for all these deaths of these 10 people on Long Island? Some people within the Suffolk County Police Department said yeah, while others who are also in the spotlight in Suffolk County say no.
Yeah, because some of them were different. Some of them were wrapped in burlap. Some of them were not wrapped in burlap. Is it one person who is changing up the way that they're doing things? Or is it multiple killers operating in the same area?
Killing the same
types of people.
Yeah. We're going to dive into this in a second episode. So join us next week for a second half of this episode where we dive into the suspected corruption within this community and its law enforcement and investigators, and find out how investigators finally hunted down the Long Island serial killer. And we're going to dive super deep, which is my favorite, into what police say that they uncovered on the suspect home computer.
So good.
And it's going to truly leave you absolutely terrified. I know Tina is going to be scared.
Yeah.
So I want you, in order to not miss any of our content, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us, to Crime Newsies. You do not want to miss the conclusion of this case. It's so good. So I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Thanks so much for being with us.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.